Right. So how do you get these agencies to actually enforce the laws that are on the books then?
Well, we need to give them some independence. When you have federal agencies, monitoring other federal agencies, there's not a whole lot of incentive, especially with, political influence that can be used on some of these agencies. They need to be more independent.
Sure. I mean, is there a threat that local banks and that maybe are lending now could be impacted by these national reforms that could happen? And how do you make it so that these local banks that are doing well right now aren't hurt by it?
Well, thank goodness the local banks are. The small cooperative and savings and credit unions and mid-sized banks are the ones that are doing well. They're actually doing lending. They're working with their longtime clients. They're looking at the balance sheets and they're understanding that they've been here for 100 years. So that's the good news. A lot of the larger lenders, however, are not lending, and we need to encourage them to do so and have it be based on obviously a solid borrower, not just basically backfilling their bottom line so they look better on paper. So we need to make sure that we don't create so many new regulations that a lot of these lenders that are doing well aren't hurt. And it's going to be. I had been on the Banks and Banking Commission. I was on the Predatory Lending Conference Committee report. I actually helped write the bill that the Attorney General is actually enforcing. So, we can do things, but it's not going to be fixed overnight.
Sure. It seems like there was relatively low turnout in the primary election, and obviously this is a busy season around the holidays to have this short election. How important is this race for businesses specifically? I mean, what are the outcomes and the effects of this race going to be for businesses?
If businesses don't get involved in this race, then shame on them. They shouldn't be complaining around the dinner table or the boardroom because they have a very clear choice of two different people who have two different ways of looking at business communities. Now, I've received the endorsement of NFIB, and I've been deemed the guardian of small business, and I've never voted for a tax increase while in elective office. I'm the person that's watching out to make sure that businesses are able to continue to function in Massachusetts. And as AIM and others have reported, this is one of the worst business climates in decades. So how do you deal with it? Well, you have a very clear choice. You have somebody who's running on the Democratic ticket, Martha Coakley, who wants to raise your taxes over $2 trillion over the next 5 years. In addition to that, she will be in lockstep with Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and the President and Governor Patrick to basically do what she's told. That's evidenced by the fact that she's already changed her mind on the health care proposal. So if you want to take all the things that are happening statewide, the overregulation, the trouble damages bill being passed, the high taxation, the sales tax going up, the meals tax, the hotel tax, and you throw in the beer, the cigarette, and then there's potentially a gas tax coming down. Add that to what's happening federally with the cap and trade, health care, expiring tax cuts, a war tax potentially, and a whole host of other issues affecting businesses directly. I'll tell you what, if business leaders do not get involved and have all their employees come out and vote for me, then shame on them, because you have a clear chance to put somebody in there who understands the value of a dollar.
Right. Just two more questions. One about the cap and trade legislation, which you said that you've opposed. What is the best way to push businesses to embrace, renewable energies and technologies?
Well, when we have companies like Evergreen getting $58 million and then they export their jobs to China, that's offensive to me as a taxpayer, and I think people should be outraged. We need to provide a market for those goods, first of all. And when we are asking for high taxation and also the high cost of doing business, it's not very competitive for businesses to create and stay green and then export that green technology. So in order to get off the interdependence of fossil fuels, I look at a total approach. First would be obviously conservation. Then you need to look at wind, solar, nuclear, hydroelectric. And when's the last time we built a nuclear facility? 30, 35 years ago? And yet France has 80% of their energy comes from nuclear power. So in order to step back and do more to reduce our carbon footprint, we need to have a total approach, not to tax businesses like Polar Beverages and others to the point where they're becoming economically non-competitive. It makes no sense to me.
Right. So if you sort of relieve businesses of current obligations, then you're confident they'll invest in these new technologies?
Well, there's an incentive to invest in new technologies because, number one, you have the investment tax credits. There are tax credits that are about to expire that allow for businesses to invest and reinvest and take tax breaks from it. To eliminate those tax breaks and then eliminate any type of other credits, it's problematic. So that's one step, is to make sure that we provide incentives. And it is a natural incentive because people want to help out the environment. They want to make sure that they're being a good environmental citizen. They want to recycle. They want to save money on gas and lights and everything else. So it makes sense.
Sure. So what's the biggest hindrance to business, in your opinion, at this point in terms of business development?
Well, we have some of the highest corporate tax rates, 39% in the world. We need to reduce those down to 30%. And then we need to make sure that the tax cuts don't expire. We need to make sure that we have regulations that make sense and they're not so onerous on businesses that they can't do business. I'm finding that businesses are so confused: do we invest, do we not invest, do we hire, do we not hire, that they're just stagnant and they're just kind of waiting it out. Well, unfortunately, you can't wait it out because between the healthcare proposal that's being pushed by Martha Coakley and the cap and trade proposal that she supports, and the expiring tax cuts that she wants to expire, and then the overregulation that's being pushed on by Congress right now, those are the biggest challenges, to do an across-the-board tax cut of marginal and corporate rates, and to reduce payroll taxes, to allow people to reinvest, and then address some of the onerous regulations affecting businesses. Sure.
And a last question, just about Afghanistan. I know that you support the troop buildup in Afghanistan. How should that war be paid for?
It's paid for like every other war is paid for. I don't look at the value of wars and how much it costs. I look at how many lives are lost and how many lives can be in fact saved. And by overspending in these other areas, for example, the out-of-control debt that we have now, $12 trillion and counting, and then you take the expiring tax cuts and the stimulus bills, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They just did a stimulus bill the other day in the Senate and raised the debt ceiling, tried to at least, in a day. It's more than the wars have cost in 8 years. So they can find a way to pay for it by not overspending and increasing business activity, by lowering taxes and lowering fees and putting more money in people's pockets so they'll invest and reinvest. And remember, JFK in the early 60s called for an across-the-board tax cut for all businesses and families to create jobs and stimulate the economy and make sure that people invested in our society to increase taxes. And that was true then. Ronald Reagan felt that way, and so does Scott Brown. Martha Coakley doesn't.
All right, great. All right, I think we're all set then.
All right, thank you.